తీసుకున్న పాఠశాలల్లో మౌలిక సదుపాయాల కల్పన, పుస్తకాలు, బెంచీలు, విద్యార్థులకు స్కూల్ బ్యాగులు అందించింది. డిజిటల్ లైబ్రరీలు, డిజిటల్ తరగతి గదులు ఏర్పాటు చేస్తోంది.
జనభూమి రుణం కొంతైనా తీర్చుకోవాలనే తపన.
Teammates and friends, I am Murthy Kopaka, Board of Director, NATS from Chicago, Illinois. I feel extremely honored and humbled for this opportunity to start this informative session. From NATS Chicago chapter, I would like to offer special thanks to NATS leadership, Sridhar Apsani garu, NATS board chairman, and Vijay Shekhar Anya garu, NATS president, for taking up the responsibility of organizing this event. I would like to offer thanks to NATS Chicago chapter leadership also. College application process could be tough for parents and students that are going through this for the first time. During this period, the students and their parents go through a lot of confusion. Being a father to a son doing his first year of bachelor's, I went through the same. Today, I would like to thank the youngsters who came forward to provide us with enough guidance to improve awareness in the college application process in smoothest possible way. I would like to hand it over to program moderators Lakshmi Bajja garu, Venu Krishnadula garu, and Karthik to take over the proceedings. Thank you.
Hello all, this is Lakshmi Bajja. Thanks for joining all the student panel and the guests, Venu and Karthik. Let me introduce to our student panel. We have Abhinav Teja. Hey Abhinav. You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Auntie. Hi, I'm Teja, and I go to UCSD, University of California, San Diego, and I'm a human biology major, so FEMA route, and my minor was global health. And I graduated recently in 2020, so yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining, Abhinav. We have Amog Balvini. Hey Amog.
Hey, I'm Amog. I go to USC and I'm a sophomore majoring in health information science.
Okay. We have Sri Charan. Hi Sri Charan.
Hi, I'm Sri Sharon. I go to Mizzou, or University of Missouri, Columbia. I'm a freshman and I'm majoring in microbiology.
Hi Rachna.
Hi, my name is Rachna. I'm a freshman at UF. I'm majoring in public health, minoring in health disparities. I'm in a pre-med track.
And we have here Shri. Hey Shri, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sri. I go to UIC also. I'm a bio major, biological sciences with a psychology minor, and I also recently graduated.
Okay. And we have Aniket here, Mutigaru's son. We can't hear you, Aniket.
Shit. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm Aniket. I go to Indiana University, and I'm a finance major here. I'm a freshman.
And we have Shreya here.
Hi, I'm Shreya. I go to the Ohio State University. I'm a junior and I'm majoring in health sciences with a minor in business.
And we have Geet.
Hi everyone. I go to Texas A&M University and I major in industrial and systems engineering, and I have a minor in computer science.
Thank you all of you for giving your time and putting all these efforts, sharing your experiences for your juniors, brothers, sisters, everybody. We really appreciate and we are all proud of you. Thank you once again. I'll give the cue to Venu.
All right, guys. So let's get on with the presentation. So before that, I just want to give a quick follow-up or as to how it started. There were a few high school students who approached us and said, hey, uncle, we're not able to talk to our teachers as much, or the students, the hallway conversations, either due to e-learning options or just for the present COVID situations. It had made it little challenging than usual. And it's already an anxious time, even if I go back to my college time. So we are trying to get this wonderful panel of students who want to share their experiences and want to see if they can help alleviate at least some of the anxiety and answer some of the questions that can help. So with that, we would like to get started with the presentation. If you have any questions, please chime in through that URL that we have already provided. And the presentation is already geared, and these kids have done, students have done a fantastic job answering almost all the questions that you have asked so far. And if there's something new after the presentation, we will go and talk about those in detail. Okay, so we'll get started with the presentations. Okay, before we proceed, we want to kindly note that this discussion again is intended to share the students' experiences in an attempt to help the high school students. We request that you do not make your decisions solely based on this discussion or the presentation alone. Every college and every application can be unique, and these are not views of the colleges or NATS. We request and strongly encourage the audience to seek official opinion from respective colleges of your interest or appropriate professionals before you make your decisions. With that, I would like to Geet to initiate the conversation.
So hi everyone. We know that there's a lot of things that you can look into when choosing a school. It goes beyond just rankings, and there's a good amount of aspects that I and a lot of the people on this panel would like to kind of touch base on to make sure you guys understand what your options are when choosing a school. If we're on the first slide, so what to look for when choosing a school. Really, there's the first thing you always want to worry about is location. In-state tuition, out-of-state tuition. Financial opportunities vary vastly according to what school you go to. If you're going to in-state, usually there's a lot of scholarships and stuff that are offered to you because it's beneficial for schools to accept in-state students. But it goes beyond that when it comes to location. Especially in engineering, right? There's geo-specific opportunities, meaning when I went to Texas A&M, Texas is a gold mine for stuff that's in the energy industry and the oil industry. So when I'm looking for an internship as a Texas A&M student, it's very easy for me to acquire something in those fields. I'm not saying it's impossible for me to acquire something out in California or out in the tech industry. You just have to put a little bit more effort into doing so. And it's like, okay, if you're going to Texas A&M, that's a super easy way to enter the industry as an engineer, right? And so for Texas, that might be the case. Or if you're in California, obviously, like NorCal, you're going to have Silicon Valley opportunities more than maybe other students may have going to a school in the middle of the Midwest, right? And proper environment. Proper environment is something that's really important too. And I'll touch base on that in the next slide. Is depending on the size of your school, depending on like the demographic of your school, can really affect your education more than you think. You're going to be living here for the next 4+ years, and you choosing where you're going to live actually like it plays a huge role into how you perform, and your mental is a very important thing in college, and that really does affect it. Another thing you want to look into when choosing a school is extracurriculars and exclusive opportunities. So extracurriculars, if you're going into sports or certain types of clubs, and certain universities offer those, that's definitely something worth looking into. But when I talk about exclusive opportunities, it comes down to, again, looking at it on a university basis. So like, again, I have an example from Texas A&M. Texas A&M is the country's largest recruiter into Pixar animation. And a lot of really cool things have come out of Texas A&M in regards to Pixar, like the old I forgot his name, the old guy in Up. He's actually a professor. He was based off a professor at Texas A&M. And same thing with our wind tunnel. Like, because we're such a big university with such a huge budget, we have the country's largest wind tunnel. And if you're going to go into like aerospace engineering, that's something that could be very beneficial, and so on. So like, that's what and going into from there to transition into the advantages and disadvantages of school size. There's many advantages that comes to going to a bigger school, in my opinion, which is, you're going to have a larger budget for things like research, and having so many students and so many professors means there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and you're going to have it's going to feel like you're almost in like a little city of your own. At the same time, the biggest disadvantage to going to a school as big as Texas A&M, which is like 60,000 students, is there's always going to be like 100 to 200 people in your class. So it would be very like, your professors aren't probably going to know who you are, and it's going to be very hard for you to get like personal help from them. It's going to feel very like, produced. It's going to feel like you're in a factory. You're going into class. The professor doesn't really know you. You just got to teach yourself most of the time. And that's one of the biggest advantages of going to a small school, is that class size. And if you want that high school catered education where the professor cares about you, that's going to be something you find in a small school, or maybe a smaller program. There's like a school like USC, University of Southern California, actually has a program where it's a huge school, but the program only takes 50 kids. So the professors that are allotted in that program will only deal with a few amount of kids. And lastly, the acceptance of credits is something that really matters when choosing a school, because credits can really determine how fast you can graduate, or what other opportunities you can take within your 4 years and still graduate in 4 years. Some schools will only take AP. When I came to Texas, I realized there was more than just AP, because there's also IB and dual credit. And so, looking into that and seeing what your school will take as credits may actually be of a huge benefit to you, because you can maybe put in 1 or 2 extra minors with your education because you already had so many credits coming into college. And now talking about location, if we go to the next slide. So this is just like a visual representation of kind of what we put together of what it might feel to go to schools in different areas. So UCLA, right? It's kind of at the edge of LA, but it's still in the city. And it's a beautiful campus, but if you look at the Google map, like, you can get to LA really quickly, versus if you go to University of Illinois. I mean, again, really nice campus, really huge campus with 40,000 students. But keep in mind, you're about 2.5 hours away from literally anyone. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. Like, I have a lot of friends that go to University of Illinois, and they tell you, like, outside of University of Illinois, on the left and the right is cornfields. But if you get used to it, I mean, you'll love it. So that's kind of what I have to say about that. I think we can go to the next slide.
All right, so when you're looking at applying to colleges, a general rule of thumb that you might want to think about is a 5-college application, 2-to-1 rule. So this kind of differs for everybody. Personally, I applied to around 7 to 9 colleges, but you should first start off with 5 colleges that you want to look at. So 2 are going to be safety, schools that your ACT or SAT average and GPA exceed like the minimum requirements. 2 will be target, and then the target schools are going to be the schools that your SAT and ACT and GPA requirements kind of like match that area, and then 1 reach schools. And that's a school that's kind of like really, really hard to get into, but you just want to like shoot for it. And again, everyone has different number of colleges that they want to apply to, but this is just a general rule of thumb when you're like looking at the process to begin with. And then if we go to the next slide. This is pretty much just going to be like the application process. So after you've chosen your schools, some things that you want to do is first send your transcript and your test scores to that school. And you're also going to want to see if that school is Common Apps or a Coalition app or like a school-specific application process. And the Common App and this type of applications, like where you write your essays and stuff, usually most schools have Common App or Coalition, but I know it's like UC schools are specific to like that type of area, so they're gonna have a separate prompt that you have to write an essay for. The next thing you're going to want to do is get recommendation letters, and usually you're going to want recommendation letters from people that are in the field or in the field that you're applying to, or people that generally like you a lot, and they want to be able to vouch for your actions because you want a positive recommendation letter, not like a negative one. And then of course you're gonna have your essay to write about, and we'll talk about that later. And then you just want to make sure that you maintain your grades that you got from pretty much all of high school, even throughout your second semester of senior year, because it is of course a possibility to get rescinded.
Okay, next slide. So what do colleges actually care about? So before I go into this slide, I just want to say, I know there's a common question that comes up. Is GPA important? Is SAT score important? But I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that everything part of your application is important, such as GPA, your extracurriculars, your essays, and your SAT, ACT scores, and so on. So first off, GPA. I think GPA it's something you got to maintain throughout your entire time in high school. And like previously mentioned, it's important to even after getting to college. It's important to keep your grades up your second semester or second semester. For example, if you get below, I think a B minus, you have a option to get rescinded. So that's a very big thing. And extracurriculars, quality not quantity. I think the biggest thing here is someone could have like 10 activities, but if you're only doing something for, let's say, a couple months, it's really not that important. For example, for like myself, I played a sport for 4 years. I played water polo. Another thing I was committed to was like Boy Scouts for 6 years. So it's important to have, even though I didn't have like 6 activities, I had 2-3 big things that I was committed to like throughout high school or before high school, and I kept I stuck with it, and I was able to talk about it in my essays and personal statements and so on. So that's another big thing. And leadership recognition is like when you're in organizations, it's better to take up on like an officer position and stuff like that. So that's another big thing. And awards is just like getting through high school, like being like a merit scholar, or just being an honor student, or like some other awards, such as for myself, I had like Boy Scouts. I got Eagle Scout award. So those are 3 big things that are very important because extracurriculars are usually what you can usually talk about in your essays. So that's a very big part of application. And that next part goes into essays. We'll be going more into that, but I think essays are a very big part of your application, apart from GPA and your SAT scores or ACT scores. Because even though, let's say, those are like not as high as you want it to be, these essays are what make the deciding factor. They show who you really are, apart from just numbers. So I think essays, personal statements, and any other like supplements, such as like describing your extracurriculars, are a very big part of your essays. And then next thing is standardized scores. So I know like this year SAT and ACT are a bit different, but usually like those are very important. And you can also take SAT subject tests like biology, chemistry, Spanish. There's so much like you look into. And if let's say you want to go into the pre-med route, maybe that's something you want to take take so that you have a better advantage. But overall, I think as a college application, everything is a very big component, and it really shows who you really are, especially those extracurriculars and personal statements. Because at the end of the day, those GPA and scores only show a part of you, only show the numbers. So I think these are the 4 biggest things that colleges really look for.
Early decision is the school. You're going to want to apply early decision to what you would probably think of as your dream school. You can only apply to one school, so it should be the school that you want to go to most badly. And early decision is binding, so if you do apply there, you're going to have to go there no matter what, regardless of finances or whatever. So make sure you're educated about that before you apply to a school early decision, and make sure you really want to go there if you do apply to a school early decision. Another one is early application or early action, which is when you can apply to a school around the same time as early decision, but it's not binding. So you don't have to go there if you get in. But I would recommend any school that is a safety or even a bit of a reach, you apply early action because you're showing interest if you're applying early. And there tends to be less applicants when you apply early. So I think it's a much better idea if you apply early. And regular decision is when you apply in January or February, which is typically when most people apply, but there's a lot of applicants. And I don't want to say it feels like you're applying late, but I feel like if you didn't apply early action or early decision to a school, it just doesn't look like you're showing as much interest. So I would say apply regular decision to a school if it comes up onto your mind later, or if you're not really sure about whether you want to apply there, and you can just apply there like afterwards. And also with regular decision, it takes into account your GPA from the first semester of your senior year, which ED and EAA don't because you applied during your first semester of senior year. And additionally, there's also rolling admission, but a lot of schools don't have rolling admission. It's pretty uncommon, but rolling admission is basically you can apply to the school anytime to when the application opens in around the fall of your senior year to about around when the spring semester starts.
Okay, so the essay, like Teja said, is a really big part of your application. It's pretty much the only place where you can show, like, other than numbers, where like you can show what part of yourself you are. You can really express like what like is big to you. So before you like start planning it out and stuff, I would suggest that you look at a couple examples of students like essays that they did before from past years to get a good grip on like how people are writing essays, what styles they're utilizing, and then I would go about looking at cliches, which we'll go into more on the next slide. But basically, the whole point of this essay is to make sure that the admissions counselor gets to know you better as a person, because other than your transcript and your application, they don't really know who you are. So this is like the only place where you have to like show like what really means, what really is close to you, and like what really is important to you. So you can like show like the admissions counselor like this is who I am as a person. Like it's basically what makes a difference in a good application, and I wouldn't say a bad application, but it's what makes the difference between a good application and like a great application. So like I said, the whole point is to make sure the counselor gets to know you more, and keep in mind that like the admissions counselor is sitting there reading these with your transcript in hand. So you want to avoid talking about like your grades and stuff because they have that on hand. They have all of that. They have all your extracurriculars. So talk about something that's different from all of that, that really like it basically gives them more to work with in terms of who you are as a person. And you want to stand out from other people because your admissions counselor goes through about 100 of these when application season falls. So you want to stand out. It's your only part of your application where you can pretty much stand out a lot more than other applicants. So you want to make sure like you know the prompt and you know what's asking, because Common App essays are really different from supplementals, and we'll go into that in more detail on the next slide.
Okay, so right now I'm just going to go through a few cliches that Amog talked about in the previous slide. So Common App has 6 different topics that you can choose from, and they're all different essay prompts. They all highlight a different highlight in your life. And when you're talking about the Common App essay, you do not want to write about, especially in this season, you don't want to talk about coronavirus because everyone's going through the same things. So it won't be really unique from everyone else's experiences. You also don't want to talk about your a death in the family that changed your perspective on life, grades and awards, clubs, and anything about moving. And if you do want to write about topics like these, you really need to introduce a quirky topic to kind of layer it all. So if you want to introduce one of these things in the middle, you want to talk about something else that is more interesting and catches their eyes. Like suppose if you're talking about moving somewhere, then you should probably talk about a cliche or not a cliche, sorry, a metaphor or something that talks about it, and then you can write more about that. And if you want to, and talking about things that you do want to write about, personal realization is huge. That covers most of the Common App topics. Insecurities, anything like quirky foods, if you have a weird food habit, if you have a favorite food of some sort, you can talk about that, and any habits that you have as well. And tips when you're writing the Common App essay. So when you're writing these essays, you have to take advantage of the fact that you don't need a traditional essay, in the sense that you don't need a 5 body paragraphs. you can break it up. Like a paragraph could be like one sentence and that could be it. And those breaks are for emphasis. So you really want to take advantage of that. And there is a word limit on these Common App essays. It's 650 words. So less is always more. So you guys don't want to take up all 650 words if you're like adding fluff in there. You just want to come straight to the point. You want to talk about things that you won't mention anywhere else on the Common App. So don't talk about grades or anything like that, because the college admissions can always see like your transcript and everything. You want to talk about something that makes you you. And once you do your first draft of the Common App essay, like write everything down with no regard to the word count. And then you can slowly start editing it and take words out. That's probably what helped me the most. And if you have multiple like different like supplemental essays, and supplemental essays are school specific essays, you can find these under like the schools tab in the Common App itself, and they all have different essays. So you can honestly just reuse the ideas from like one essay to another, because the schools won't know. And you want to also take advantage of different writing styles. Like you can look at essays like Amog mentioned. Johns Hopkins has like a bank of essays that you can use, and they have really good essays, so you can take ideas. You guys can move on to the next slide.
So, how to choose a college? When you're choosing a college, this is before you start submitting your application. You want to usually you go for a tour, but considering COVID, you won't be able to do that. So, other options are you can go online, just do like a virtual tour, or you can ask anyone you know or past students or current students that have gone to that college. And you can ask them about how their life is in that college, how they like the location, the learning experience and stuff like that. But yeah, so go to the events that they sometimes hold. They sometimes hold where you can come in, get a tour. I know a couple let you go in and just watch a class for like a couple of minutes. Doing these lets you understand whether that school is going to be the best for you, because you again are going to be going there for like the next 4 years or so. And so some of the questions you want to ask yourself is this an environment that I can enjoy my schooling in? Do I see myself succeeding in this environment? How is the rigor compared to my schoolwork now? And do I fit into the campus feel? You're going to want to go through this before you start your application and after you start your application. When you're finally choosing like which college you're gonna go to at the end on decision day, you're gonna want to make like a pro and con list kind of, and see which one fits you better. Sometimes it might be like research tends to like push it over, saying like, okay, I'm gonna go to this college because they have a better research opportunity and stuff like that. You can go to the next slide.
Okay, so a very important date to keep in mind is National Decision Day, which is May 1st. And so it's the day that you like submit and accept which college you want to go to. So unless you're early decision, you have time until May 1st to decide which college you want to do. But if you are early decision, you're binding to that college, so you have to go through with that college. But for everyone else, you have your offer until May 1st. But if you don't accept any colleges, you can lose your offers after May 1st, because they might give people like your acceptance who are on the waiting list and stuff. And also during the summer, a lot of people from the wait list get accepted. So even though that you like commit to a college, you might get in during the summer, and you can accept the other college, but you just lose your deposit and all that stuff. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. Okay, some other things about college to keep in mind when you're applying. So the first thing is dual enrollment. So dual enrollment is when you're taking college classes in high school in a community college. So my high school had it, and I personally, through dual enrollment, got around 66 credits. And so, and all my university accepted it. But so to put that in perspective, a major, like to get a degree, is 160 credits. So through dual enrollment, you can get up to like 60, 70 credits, but my college capped it at 60 credits. So they accepted all 60 of those 66 that I had. And so it's really good to keep in mind, because all state public schools have to accept your dual enrollment. So it's very beneficial if you have it when you're applying for college. But some colleges also, depending on which college you apply to, have a different cap. So they might have like lower restrictions, like 30 credits or something. So just make sure when you're applying that you do your research. And some non-traditional options when applying for college are online degree programs. So I go to University of Florida, and I know there's something called UF PACE program. And so what this is that you apply and you start your first 2 years at Santa Fe College, and it's online. And so you do online classes through UF, but you end up transferring for your last 2 years to University of Florida. So even though you start off online, you end up transferring and taking like traditional classes the last 2 years, and you end up getting your degree from UF. And so like due to COVID, everything is pretty much already online. So I think that people should look into these kind of programs right now, because it's kind of like the same exact thing, but like the acceptance to like these online programs are kind of more and less competitive. So you might be still getting a degree from a really good college, even though it's online right now. And a second thing is like affiliated colleges. So there's an option to like take classes for your first 2 years in an affiliated college to a main college, and then you end up getting your main degree from this college. And so like an example is that for like everyone knows Emory College, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. So they have something called Oxford College. And so this is when students, they take their first 2 years of classes at Oxford, but then for their last like 2 years, so their third and fourth year, they go to Emory and they end up getting a degree from Emory. So this is cool, like better, because kids like during Oxford have smaller classrooms, and it's also I think a little less, like tuition's a little less for Oxford too, so you end up saving money. But at the end of the day, you're still getting your degree from Emory, so then it still looks good because you're still getting it from a really good college. So yeah.
So I believe that kind of gives an overview. We agree that it's not something that's going to answer each and every question out there, but we're hoping that this is primarily targeted for high schoolers who are in the near the application process and considering all these. So some of it is understood as that you may already be going through. So what at this point we want to do is to go through again if there are any unique questions that came across which haven't been covered yet, or if there are questions that we want to touch upon a little bit more in detail, we'll go through an open Q&A type of a session. Here at this point, I encourage the students to chime in if a specific topic is more dearer to them, and feel free to comment on that. And for the audience, you can see the URL website, the link here, tinyurl.com/NATS College Applications Web. If you can submit that, we are watching there as Google Forms or also on YouTube and Facebook. So we'll try to answer some of those questions, and we are seeing quite a bit of questions coming in. Thanks to all the people who are joining in. I hope it's really helping. So I'll open the floor, Lakshmi or Karthik, if you have seen any questions, please open to the panel. At this point, I'll stop sharing the presentation.
Thank you, Renu. Thank you, everybody. I will just go ahead and try to get some of the questions we got from somebody submitted online, some of the students. So can somebody elaborate on the importance of recommendation letters? I know you already covered that, but what exactly do the students need to focus on in their in the recommendation letters?
I can talk about this one. So I'm a pre-med major, so I think it's very important, like no matter which like path you're going, that you choose people who help you in that path. So for example, if you're pre-med, you should probably get someone from science and math, because that's what your like basis of your pathway is going to be off of, and also someone like you did like activities with. So like for me, I actually like they recommend around 2 letter recommendations. I did 4. So I did my science and my my biology teacher, my calculus teacher, and I did an internship. And so I did my mentor for that. And then I had another, that was a research internship, so he, like, my like doctor person wrote it for it. And then the second was I did another internship at National Pediatric Cancer Foundation, so like the person I worked under. So like these people can like vouch for me because like I'm going into pre-med, and so these activities are pre-med related. So then when you have people writing for you, they can like support you in your pathway. So choose people who like will help you in your field.
I actually have something to add to that. So if you are in the pre-med route and you're choosing like science and like math teachers to write your recommendations letter, sometimes they aren't the best at writing. So I had my English teacher write me one as well because I knew her writing would be better and she would have a better way of like saying what kind of student I am. So I just had her as a backup, and that's just what I did.
Thank you, Shreya and Rachna. Anybody want to chime in on those and share their experiences?
Just to add on to that, I think another big thing apart from that is to get letter recommendations from professors or people who you work with for extended period of time. Let's say you take a class with a professor, you know, have them for like a semester and you really get to know them. I wouldn't recommend that, even though you did a great job in their class, as you got an A. I think you should best to go with people who you work with for a long time, who can vouch for you, as Casey mentioned, and they can actually talk in more detail about your, you know, the type of person you are. Because at the end of the day, after you get letter recommendations from a professor or a teacher, you're not going to talk about your grades. You're going to talk about the type of person you are. If you're passionate, if you're, you know, like just other strong qualities about you. And only people who have worked with you for many months or let's say years will really know that about you. So it's important to only go with people who you work with for a long period of time.
Thank you, Tejas. Thank you for sharing your insight. Velu or Karthik, do you want to go ahead and ask me any questions? Any specific questions? Or should I go?
Yeah, I got a question from someone on YouTube stream. Sid, he's asking, how do you report AP scores from senior year if you haven't taken it yet?
So I can answer this question. So when you're taking your AP exams in May, like so this coming May, there's a school code thing that you can write on there, and that school code is specific to your college. So when you write that code, it'll automatically be sent to your college right away.
I'm looking up the Google Forms. I'll pick one of these. What's a healthy balance of grades and extracurricular? Do standardized test scores really matter to colleges?
To answer that question, I think like no matter like for a balance, I think like more than doing a lot of classes, that you have to choose classes that like you're interested in and do the best you can for the ability. So like, and also try going to like the highest level that you can. So if you really like biology, like don't stick with just biology honors, like try taking AP biology, or like if you can from dual enrollment, you can take like integrated biology, or you can take like higher level classes. And so this shows like colleges that you're really interested in this field and that you can like do the mastery levels of it. And then also for like SATs, like right now we're in a very unprecedented time. So like I know a lot of like seniors and juniors don't have the ability to take their tests and everything. So I think like the importance of it's going to be very minimal. But even for like people like when I took it, there's always like an average, just like a median. There's always people who do like really, really good, and there's really people who do really, really less. But I think like colleges are very, very holistic, because I knew people like for like University of Florida, the average was around like a 1400 to get in, like 1380. But I knew people who got 1560s who did not get into the college, but I knew people who got in with 1300s, and that all comes down to like everything of an application. So like your essay is the most important. I think your essay is the most important, and then your extracurricular activities, and then your SAT scores, and then your grades. So everything combines all together, but like just don't put an emphasis on one specific area, but like try to do it like good in everything.
I have one more question to ask. So here it says, so I want to go down the pre-med track and I'm having trouble deciding between majors. I know that you guys can't make the decision for me, of course not. But would you recommend majoring in something sciencey like neuroscience or psychology, or something else that has roots elsewhere, for example, healthcare management?
So I can
Essentially,
answer
what
this
did you
question.
do?
So
How
when I
did
was
you go
applying to
about
college, I applied with health sciences because I was still deciding between if I wanted to do pre-med or if I wanted to go into more business route. So for me, at least, it really helped choosing a major that had different branches. So I was not only exposed to the pre-med prerequisites, I was also exposed to the business side, and I ended up choosing the business side. So it's harder for you to make the transition if you're neuro all the way back down to business, but it's like easier if you have roots somewhere else and you want, like, you have two different paths, because you can be computer science and you can still be pre-med. So it doesn't matter technically what major you choose, but it's up to you if you want other technical like background as well.
Just to add on to that, I didn't know this till I went to college, but like previously mentioned, you could do whatever major you want, even if you're pre-med. You could do like stuff like communications, engineering, or computer science, as previously mentioned. So it's just important to stick with what you like. And at the end of the day, like you just have to do the requirements or do the classes that are required for applying to medical school. So I think if you're stuck on what major to choose, I think that's a big problem, because I went to UCSD as a psychology major and I switched in when I got there. So you don't really have to know. You could go in undecided. Keep in mind about impacted majors, which are kind of harder to get into. So like, just keep all that in mind. Also, it's important to know that it really doesn't matter. You could do whatever your major you want and still do pre-med.
Also,
So, I mean,
pre-med, I think like the main thing is no matter what. Okay.
Go ahead, Rachna.
Okay. So for pre-med applications, like all they want to see is just like it's what you're interested in and passionate about. So you could even like major in like arts or whatever you want to do, but if it's something that you're passionate about, that's what's most important, because they don't want to see everyone doing biology, and then they don't want to see everyone doing like the most like hard sciences or something. They want to see like a diverse application. So you could do anything that you want. And choose like stuff like, and you can go like really fun with like your minors and stuff like that too. Like I'm like minoring in health disparities, but I like to dance, so I'm doing something called dance and medicine. So like it's like a very different thing. So when I'm applying to med school, it makes me stand out, but it's something I'm passionate about. So it all comes down to like finding your passions and doing whatever it is what you want to do. And like college is all about exploring. So like explore your options. So like even if you do choose one major, you can change your major throughout your 4 years, but just be happy and choose like whatever you like then.
Thank you, Rachna. I got another question from Facebook. They're asking what is the difference between SAT and ACT? What would you suggest with the best, which one to take?
I can answer. Oh,
go ahead.
Okay. So I'm from the Midwest, and so generally in my area, like the ACT is considered more like prominent, and it truly depends on like location based. So if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, you're generally going to go with the SAT, but then like more Midwest areas are generally going to be more ACT. Most colleges like don't prefer one over the other. They're both standardized tests. Although the ACT is kind of getting a change recently where you can take like specific portions by itself. So I don't know how that's going to factor in. You'd have to do a little bit more research about that. On the safe side, I'd probably suggest the SAT over the ACT.
I have something to add on to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
So for me, it's more of like, going on with what he said, it's more of whatever you're comfortable with. So I would try practice tests of both, and then since they're both different formats, seeing what format you like better and seeing what format you perform better in, and then taking that test and then going along with that for like the rest of your time. So it doesn't take that long to take like a practice test for both, and then you can decide on which one you want to go ahead with.
And keep in mind that ACT also has a science section and SAT does not. SAT has 2 math sections instead of having that science section. So SAT, in my opinion, is a little rigorous in the reading section because they're trying to cover up your knowledge of like reading graphs and all that stuff. Whereas in the ACT, like English is like super easy, reading is super easy, but like science is like kind of where it gets tricky.
So I've taken both of the exams, SAT and ACT, and what I've found is that the SAT is more knowledge-based, like how much do you actually know your stuff, and the ACT is more like how much do you know your stuff, but how fast can you finish it. So the ACT is more time-based. So again, take both of them and figure out which one works better for you, because for the most part, colleges will accept both, or they'll convert, because they have a range that says like if you got a certain score on the SAT, that's around what score you would have gotten like on this for the ACT. So either way, they'll like convert over for the most part. So either way, you should be fine taking one or the other.
Thank you, Shri, Amog, and Shreya. On the same note, somebody asked another question: how to build strong relationships with the teacher?
So when go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you can go
No.
ahead.
Okay. I would say for me, it's just kind of like going in like before class or after class, trying to like if you have questions on homework or something, try to get them talked about, or if they like are hosts of a club, probably like join a club that you're interested in. Don't join a club for the sake of building a relationship with the teacher, but join a club that you're interested in, and then usually you'll make connections that way. I know for me, I had a teacher that for 4 years of high school, and so I was able to establish like a good relationship just because I was in his class nearly every single day of high school. And so if you ever have like opportunities like that, I'd highly suggest you to take it because his recommendation letter probably set me apart from his recommendation letter is probably like way better than some of my other teachers' recommendation letter because he's known me the longest.
Thank you, Shri, Amog, and everybody who chimed in. Renu or Karthik, you want to ask me any questions?
Yeah. There's one question. Other than what is important in that aspect as well? Maybe Aniket, you're in business. Do you want to chime in anything on that?
I would say outside of that, I just think the most important is extracurriculars and just being like well-rounded in general. But I don't think there's anything super specific that goes to that.
Yeah, the question was about primarily on SAT scores or scores in a sense. Is there a specific range or something else on those lines?
Usually you can go onto the college website and look at the requirements because like most of them will talk about how like you need to have like certain score on your SAT or ACT or certain range to be accepted into their program. Like I know UIUC's engineering has a really high ACT score, stuff like that, GPA requirements, because their engineering program is a lot tougher. So they'll require more stuff than like their art program or stuff like that. So the best thing to do is just go to the school website and look at them for prospective undergrad students. Because they'll usually either that or you can just call the office themselves and ask them like I'm gonna apply and I was wondering what the requirements are, and they'll tell you. So.
And to add on to that, there's usually like third-party websites or even something that your high school offers. Like my high school offered a website called Naviance, which basically shows you like previous students from your high school, what their score was and what their GPA was, and if they got into the school that you're currently applying to. That usually gives you a good idea of where you sit. Because from my experience, sometimes on school websites, they kind of lowball their numbers or highball their numbers depending on what they want to portray their image versus, and usually like, especially if the school offers multiple majors, you're going to find a very generalized score for everything versus like, oh, this specific major, this specific GPA, like you doing that extra research for that third party website, or a lot of schools I feel like offer Naviance. You should go and check on what your previous alumni did and how they got into the schools.
Thank you. Karthik, you had any specific questions on YouTube coming up? Otherwise, I have a few more.
I'm just filtering out. You can take up again.
Okay. I'll Geet on the same. There's a specific question. What scholarships are recommended to apply for Texas colleges, more specifically UT, UTD, TAMO, and how should I do them? So I think you're in the right area.
Yeah, so for scholarships through there's a lot of need-based scholarships and a lot of fun, like even just going through the website. So I don't know too much about the other schools because I am from Illinois, and so a lot of the scholarships I applied to were within Illinois that would reach out to stuff in Texas. But I do have experience with Texas A&M, and Texas A&M has a website where they will link scholarships that are from foundational basis, meaning like someone from like that graduated from Texas A&M that has now has the money to support other students to come to Texas A&M. They're going to have those people listed on their this website, and you can go and be like, okay, so these are all the and then there's usually like a good amount of requirements that they say, so you'll know which scholarships you are eligible to apply to. And so the easiest amount of scholarships is the ones that are linked directly to your university. But obviously those are always the most competitive because everyone's going to see those. The other scholarships, you're going to have to start looking at your local, every community has local businesses and just businesses that are offering students in their communities to go and apply on their website to go to scholarships. So like, I mean, if you live in Dallas or you live in Houston, just look up like Houston specific scholarships or Dallas specific scholarships and look at those ones that are hosted by like your smaller businesses, because that's going to give you a higher guarantee of getting those scholarships just because there's going to be a lower competition. I'm not saying it's going to be guaranteed specifically, but the university ones are usually going to be harder just because everyone gets to see those and everyone will apply to those.
One thing that I've found, this was when I was applying for college, so that was like 4 or 5 years ago. There's always going to be scholarships everywhere, like Geet was saying. And there's scholarships for like sometimes the smallest of things. Like one of my friend got a scholarship for like $550 for being a left-handed person. Someone else got, I think, like $800 just for being the only male in a all-female group. Like some like club or something like that. So there's always going to be scholarships for different stuff. You just have to look through them. The best thing I've found is just Googling scholarships for college, and it'll take you to a bunch of websites, and just got to look through those and figure out which ones you want to apply for and try to get. I mean, some of them might not be much, but like if you do more and more, that will eventually build up. So just look through it, I guess.
That's good. Thank you. I have a follow up on that, on the scholarships, etc. Or now jumping a little bit onto the federal aid, the FAFSA program. There are a few questions on the same lines touching, but also some have on the green card, EAD, and the L2 type of so immigration related federal aid, and then general federal aid. One specific question is if you have a green card, EAD. Not a permanent resident yet. Are we eligible to submit for federal aid? There's a confusion, and that's where they want to ask on those lines for the pre-MAC application. Can you, if you have any experience on those lines, can you kindly comment on that?
I could speak on that. So when I applied to college, I was still in the green card process, so I did not have it. I think it's still important to apply for FAFSA, even if you do not have a green card, or if you're not a citizen, or if you're on a visa. I think everyone should do it because all you just need is your personal information, your parents' information, and the tax returns. And even through that, the school did look at my FAFSA application, and they did decide to give loans. But even if you don't take loans, it's still important to take because it will still be there. And when I got my green card later on, like my second year of college, because I filled out the FAFSA, I was able to get other scholarships such as like middle class scholarship and so forth. So I think no matter what status you are, you should not, if you're not a green card citizen, I wouldn't really expect to get anything other than loans. But I think if you do apply, you can still get some other stuff like loans, and your university can look at that and maybe possibly give something. I think it all depends on the university and what they're looking for specifically, and the requirements and their guidelines.
Thank you, Teja. Anybody want to chime in for this question? Okay, I have another question. Some student is interested in BS MD program, not sure in this COVID situation, choose preference with in-state or out-of-state colleges, being resident of California. So please give good advice.
Any takers?
Could you repeat that one question again? I think I can answer it. I don't, yeah.
I think the student is interested to apply for a BS-MD program, but because of this COVID situation, I think the student's question is, should she prefer in-state or out-of-state colleges? She or he is in California, and I think she needs some advice on choosing in-state or out-of-state colleges.
Was it BSMB program?
Yes.
I'm unsure on what a BSMB program is. I think unless someone else can correct me, I think he's referring to like a bachelor's in science and then like a 5-year program into an MBA. If that's kind of what I interpret that as.
I think it's like an 8-year program, like a BS and an
Yeah, I think it's 8 years.
Then I'm not going to be able to answer that.
I got into like a BSc. So those applications just like all are like very interesting because there's like multiple parts to it. When I applied, so you have like an application along with like your regular application. Then you also have like, for the ones I applied to, a separate application for that program. And then if you get accepted into that, you have the interviews. And so I did like my interviews, and then like 2 weeks later they like call and like tell you about your acceptance. And so I got to choose between 7 or 8 years, but then it depends on like which way you want to go. I chose 7 years, but I know some people like who like later on choose to do 8 years. So pretty much BSMD is when you get your bachelor's and your medical degree together in 8 years or 7 years, depending on which path you take. So you take more vigorous classes and you skip around with credits and stuff. So I don't know how it changes due to COVID. So I don't know how they're doing interviews or any of that kind of process. But when it comes between in-state and out-of-state, it really just depends on like you and your parents and like what you want out of it too. Because going out of state is really, really expensive. And I guess like even if money is not the situation, it's kind of like the end goal. Because like even if you're paying so much money, if you're going, especially in a pre-med track, you kind of want to save money in your undergrad because you're also paying for med school. And med school, you really won't be getting any kind of scholarships or any kind of loans. And so you're going to be racking up around like $3,200,000 for med school, like an on average, because like med school each year is around 60 to 80K. And that includes like where you're staying, food, and all that stuff, right? That's times 4. So like that's going to be a huge investment in your part and your family's part too if they decide to contribute. But like if you're an undergrad and you're getting 4 years of free education, I think that's very, very like good for you in the pre-med track. So like usually if you're in state, they give you really good scholarships and you go completely free. Like that's what I'm doing. So like it just depends on what you want to do. If your family wants to contribute to like a really good school out of state, like it's a family decision at that like point of time. So it just depends on what you want and what your family decides to.
Thank you, Arshad. Anybody want to answer, give their thoughts or share their experience or regarding this question? If not, I have few more questions. It's about college application interviews. Do all college applicants get an interview? Does being offered a college interview mean anything? Anybody want to answer that?
I can answer that. So college interviews vary in what they can mean for someone. I had a couple college interviews myself, and sometimes it's like it's an added especially if you're applying to a more competitive program. It's something that they're going to ask like an alumni or someone that lives in your area to come and talk to you, and it'll just be like a conversation you have with the alumni, and they're just going to ask you what's on your resume and like explain it to them. But usually it's not, it could be something that every student gets, or it could be something that they'll be like, you have the option to take an interview if you want. This could help your application. It can't. Sometimes it can hurt, but like usually it's like you have the option to take an interview. Would you like to schedule it? The times when you know your interviews are starting to like mean something is if they're going to call you in for repetitive interviews. They have some schools will like it's going to be like almost like a job where you have one interview, and if it works out, they're going to call you back for another one, and then maybe they'll call you on for an on-campus interview. And that's kind of when you know that like the college wants to hear more about you and they're getting interested in picking you for the program. But other than that, interviews are always very important because you can display who you are, especially if you're not a good essay writer. It's a great way to show whoever you're talking to, because they're going to be the one that'll report back to the university and be like, okay, so I spoke to the student and, you know, he was really cool. Like he was able to explain to me what was on his essay. Maybe sometimes you can portray all that information a lot better than you would on your essay. So it gives you that extra added opportunity to present yourself as someone that would be a good fit to the university.
Anybody else want to chime in? Sri, I think you had some college interview experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, not every college actually does get back to you with an interview. Like, I applied to about like 11 colleges for my undergrad, and I got into about like 6 or 7 of them. And only out of all of them, I only had one college that got back to me with an interview. So most of them won't come back to you with an interview. But like, if they do come back to you with an interview, make sure that like you're being calm during the interview, and you're making like, well, I've had advice where people say like, make it so it's just a conversation, like you're talking with a friend or like a long acquaintance that you haven't talked with in a while. Make the conversation flowing, don't make it awkward, stuff like that, because they don't want to talk to you if you're gonna be like stuttering or stuff like that. So as long as, I mean, like one of my friend, he went in and they went in and he had like an hour-long interview, and they sat around talking for about 45 minutes about the new latest iPhone that was coming out, because he was getting the newest one like that day after he got back home. So like he got into that college, but like mainly because like the interviewer, he built a nice rapport with them. He was able to just be calm and just talk with them like a normal conversation. So don't stress yourself out if you do get an interview. Just, I mean, keep it formal, but like don't be like complete business with it is one thing. And yeah, like again, as Geet said, the interview is if you do get one, it's actually kind of pretty important to the furthering along your application process, because they get like a first-hand experience of how you are as a person, right, as they talk to you.
I can also add something for interviews. I had one for like a DS, like MD program thing. So we had a group interview. So it's very uncommon to have group interviews, but I had one, and so it was really interesting because I've done interviews before, but I never had a group one. So some key tips for that is just don't always talk. Like, don't always be the one to like cut someone off, or like make sure you speak like a proper amount. Like, try to speak first for sometimes, but always don't be the first one to answer a question, because it like rubs kind of not wrong, just like it just shows like too much kind of. Also, like be very, very like aware of what's happening, because they throw curveballs like at you during interviews. Like, they made us like take a raffle and pick up a topic and talk about it, and so like it was like health related. So like I talked about pharmaceutical companies and like the prices right now and drug prices. So like just be aware of like current like news issues, and like be like nice, and like just bring your like personality to it. They just want to see your personality, who you are. So like that's the most important thing about an interview.
I just want to add a little bit. I'm not a student, but I'll add to what you have.
Sure, go ahead, Venu. Value your.
Yeah, way back. But this is a very soft skill that is very important. Even when someone asks a question in a panel, you could answer the question first, which shows some initiation, but not at the competition of you're going to lose points because you just want to jump in. That shouldn't be the case. You can wait, give a thought, and express your opinion. One other thing that I have seen is out of a 10 people panel, 8 of them or 5 of them will want to jump in. But there might be a couple of students who are sitting in the corner who are a little shy or not up to the speed, and maybe they are not open in that field. What you could say as a student himself, hey, thanks for, this is my opinion. Maybe you've been quiet for a little while, not to say that, but what's your opinion? It kind of shows that you are compassionate about the people around you and giving the opportunity, and you alone are not hogging the time. So I think those are subtle things that play you as an individual and show who you are. So just to add to what you said.
Absolutely. Thank you, Venu. And I have another question. What is the impact of colleges not considering test scores? Right now, I think some of the colleges are not considering the test scores for the admission process. So, do you have anything to share or thoughts?
Oh, I could add on to that. I think since a lot of schools are not taking test scores, uh, the biggest part becomes your extracurriculars, your GPA, of course, and your personal statements. So I highly encourage, whoever, like, let's say you're applying to college and there's no SAT or ACT, or you can't take it, for example, because of COVID situations, just really go all out on your personal statements and your extracurricular activities, because that's always been what really shows the other side of you. But now, since there's no SAT scores, they're mainly going to be looking at that and obviously your GPA. So I think we don't really but since it's the first time it's happening too, because of, like, I know, like, UCs are not taking SAT scores now, or they're making optional, or because of COVID. We don't. I feel like it's very hard to really say what they're gonna look for, because it's the first time it's really happening. And I think even people who are applying now, we're gonna be the first ones to really know what's happening. Even I know college counselors, even they don't know what they're looking for. So I think, not to make you afraid or anything, I think the biggest thing is really go really focus on your personal statements, make sure there's no errors, make sure you let other people revise it a couple of times, and then at the same time make sure your other parts of the applications are strong, because that's really what's going to show if you're a good candidate for their university.
Teja, just a follow up on that, on the same lines, there is something very specific about writing personal insight and activities award section. How to make your application stand out with essays or other materials. If you have a lower grade but took harder classes, do colleges consider that? And essentially, there are a few questions on the same lines. Let's say if your GPA is not where you would like it to be, but you're doing really good work and trying to excel in multiple areas. So how do you shine those areas?
So just to really quickly, I took IB when I was in high school, so my GPA wasn't 4.0. It was very competitive. So I think the biggest thing about essays, the one thing that made me stand out is I made sure whenever you're writing an essay, the first paragraph is what's going to really catch the attention of the reader. If the first paragraph really doesn't catch your attention, the people are going to be reading hundreds of essays every day. And if there's a cliche or something that's general, no one's really going to care. They're just going, all right, it's another application. So make sure the first paragraph and at the last paragraph, I think, are the most important, because the way you start off, and obviously what you tell them in between is important too, but the way you finish off, is a very big thing. I think that's a very big thing that I really focused on. I think that's the reason why I was able to, get into competitive colleges, because, like I said, like, my GPA wasn't 4.0 or anything like that. So that's a key thing. And I think another key thing is I also let other people read my applications or my essays, but I really didn't like some of their opinions or some of the corrections they made. So I think the biggest thing to do is stick with your gut, stick with your voice, because you're the one that's trying to convey what you're trying to say in the essay. So other people's opinion, sure, it might be very great, but also take that with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, it's you. You're the one writing the essay, and only make changes that you think are natural and something that you would do or something that you would write. Because do not make it fake, because, like I said, they read hundreds of applications. They could catch it when they read it. So yeah, I think those are a few main point keys.
Just to add on to that, colleges will look at what courses you take. So say you take like the hardest courses that your high school offers, but you don't get like a 4.0, you get like, I don't know, a 3.5 GPA. But they'll understand and see, oh, you took the hardest thing that your high school gives out, and this is what you got. So they're still gonna take into factor like the course load and how hard it is, etc.
Okay, I just want to do a quick time check. We are 15 minutes past 3. If there are a few more questions, we'll try to answer them in another 10 minutes. We would like to wrap it up. But also, before we wrap up, we want to thank you guys. So we'll take last 2 or 3 questions, and then And to the audience, we are trying to shuffle through the various streams and trying our best to answer the questions. So please be patient. We'll try to get some more answered. Anything else?
Yeah, Vinu, I have a question.
Yes.
So, what extracurriculars should I strive for? Like internships, scholarships, merit awards, or research? Where will I be able to accomplish those things? That's the question that we have from audience.
I can answer that. So for like extracurriculars, it's literally just a reflection of you and like your passions and what you're interested in. So whatever you do, just show that you love it and then show consistency. And so like do it for multiple years. And something someone told me that I kind of stuck with is no matter what you do the best you can at it. So even if you choose like one club, try going to nationals, try placing at nationals, try doing the best you can, try getting awards or like showing that you can perfection that like specific activity. And like for like internships and stuff like that, just like honestly reach out like to like people and connections, because like that's very important. And I think like just getting yourself out there can go a long way, because like they can like refer you to someone else or something like that. So just make sure like you reach out and like you find different programs. Like don't be afraid to like apply, because you never know when they like are interested in you too. So just do whatever you're very passionate about and just like search for it and do the best you can in those specific activities.
I have something to add to that. So a bunch of high school like students, they don't start anything, like they don't start any clubs until like their sophomore year or their junior year. So my biggest advice would be like starting freshman year and their sophomore year, taking advantages and starting early, because you make a lot of connections your freshman and sophomore year. So the earlier the start, the better. I just feel like that would help to people looking to, apply for and, build their application.
I would also, just to add on to that, to recommend doing something for an extended period of time. So like if you join a club your freshman year and you like it, don't like keep doing it your sophomore, junior, and your senior year. Keep making sure that you do something for all 4 years of high school, because it shows the college that you're consistent with this thing. And that also you're I lost my train of thought, but yeah, pretty much.
This
To add
go for it.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, cool. To add one last thing to what they were saying, when you're talking about an extracurricular, they also want to see, well, whenever anything, in my opinion, happens, like when universities are considering you as an applicant, they want to see progression, whether that's like a GPA or ACT score or even a club. And they'll often ask you like what your position was in that club. Like, if you're on the robotics team, and usually like when I was on the robotics team, there was like 100 students in the robotics team, and you just saying that, they know that you could be as a minimum of just like someone that showed up on a daily basis but didn't do anything. So that like what Amog said and what the other people said of staying in a club for 4 years gives you that opportunity to go up in the ranks. So like by the time you're applying senior year, you can be like, I started freshman year, and by the time I was a senior, now I'm like the president of the robotics club, and because of what I did under my presidency, like we got this and this and this done. You have more to talk about because of the longevity of how long what you've done in the club. And just it's just more important. That kind of adds on to what everyone else says, is like it's always quality over quantity. Just make sure that's what it like sticks with you.
Just to quickly add on to that, I think also many people think as a pre-med, if I'm doing like I want to go to medicine, I should only do like pre-med extracurricular activities. I think that's I don't think that's true at all. I think you should apart from obviously like launching at a hospital, let's say, you should also do other things such as, I don't know, joining some club at school, like for example, like randomly, like I don't know, like a magic club or something like that. Anything that it will interest you, anything you could talk about in your application, I think you should do. Just because you're doing pre-med or going into like engineering, you don't have to specifically gear your extracurriculars towards that. It could be on anything. It could be a sport. It could be a club. It could be like joining like it's I don't know, joining, playing piano, dancing. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be specific to whatever you want to pursue in the future.
Thank you. I think I see a common theme in most of your questions is be you, be yourself, be passionate about what you're following, pursuing, and be consistent. is what I've seen. I think many of you chime in from different aspects, be it a specific college application process or how to pick a topic or how to pick your majors or minors. But I think that the common theme still remains as see what you're passionate about.
Something just to add on to that, I guess, is don't do something for the sake of it's going to look good for college. Always do something that, you know, I'm going to actually like doing this for 4 years, or I'm going to like doing this for the rest of the year. For example, I'm a 2-sport varsity athlete in high school, or was, and I didn't do that because it looked good in college. It's because I enjoyed playing that sport. I enjoyed, you know, being physically active, etc. And so do something that's going to be good for you, not necessarily just for college.
As a follow-up on that, I guess you kind of take it to the next level. I think that passion, I can vouch for it. It carries that passion into a professional life too. Whatever you work, I mean, your students, you can see that in your internships. But at a bigger scale, that passion perceives your work speaks for you even before you have stepped into the room. Right? That's just the work you do, and you're passionate. There's nothing to control. It just shows. You just can't help it. So I have one last question. I think we are getting really close. One as a follow-up. State colleges versus national universities, does it impact into the next phase of life, which is the job selection process? Is there anything on those lines you want to touch upon? That's the last question.
I'll be so. Wanna go ahead?
No, you go first. I'll tag on afterwards.
So I'll be applying to medical school like the next cycle. So I think one of the biggest things I realized is honestly, it doesn't really matter what college you go to. I think the biggest thing is you going there, taking the classes and the courses you enjoy, maintaining a good GPA, because that's going to matter. And overall, like picking up internships and jobs that really matter to you, because at the end of the day, rankings don't really matter. Whatever undergrad you go to, let's say you want to go to grad school, that's only a small part of it. And I think the biggest thing I realized after just graduating is your GPA really matters in the future. At least for like some, as I say, for medical school, it really matters. So I think just don't worry about the rankings. Just go to college that you like the location for. College you enjoy, you like their curriculum. You're like, if you're into quarter system or semester system, stuff like that. Just look into a college where you really think you're gonna fit in for 4 years and you'll enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, ranking is just another number. So that's my take on it.
And like I totally agree with what he just said. Like it really what matters at the end of the day when you go to any of these career fairs as an engineer is like every state school, university, they're going to bring companies in. You're going to have opportunities to apply online. What they care about, they never say, oh, okay, since you went to this school, tell me more about this school specifically. They're going to ask you about your knowledge. And so like you can gain that knowledge at any university. And so it's really just like in high school, it's what you make of the time at that university. You can go to literally any school, and if you work super hard, I promise you can probably get into any company as an engineer. And it obviously, like I said earlier, like going to certain schools might open up some avenues of easier application. Like going to Texas makes applying to companies in Texas easier, but that doesn't mean I'm guaranteed for companies in Texas, and doesn't mean I'm guaranteed for companies in California. Like it's just always, it depends on how hard you work, and that's what it really comes down to at the end of the day.
Just from a professional standpoint, I'll tell you that if I'm, say, going out for college interviews or whatever through my office, that is not GPA is good. Certainly, that makes you say that, hey, this kid has done well in college. But personally, certainly your passion carries your attention to detail. Your essentially colleges or schools prepare you to learn. And if you can show that you're curious about something, you can learn something and implement something. And that certainly adds to more than a paper which says, okay, I have done excellent 5.0 or 10.0 out of a 4.0. Those numbers are great. It's not a replacement, but the way you speak, all those things. So that's my little one chiming in. I guess she's telling that's about time. Lakshmi or Karthik, any other questions that you have at this point? Last question.
I think we covered almost all of them.
If not,
Yeah, we got pretty much everything.
Okay. Anything, Lakshmi?
No, from my side, no.
I guess, yes, it's 3:25. I do want to thank a few people who have really been helpful. And first of all, I do have a list, but it's going to be short. Thanks to the students who have, the high schoolers who have initially asked, hey, guys, can you please help? And I think without that initial question, I don't think we would have been able to work this out. And certainly, I can't thank enough to all these 8 panelists who are sitting here and have given excellent feedback within a short period of a week, put all the presentation together, coordinate with each other. And these guys are split over different parts of the world, right, of the country. Some is in Florida, someone is in California, someone's in Illinois. So it's certainly fantastic to see you all coordinate and help put this framework together. So thank you, Geet. Thank you, Amog. Thank you, Aniket. Thank you, Rachna. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you, Sri Charan. And certainly thank you, Sri and Teja. Certainly without you, this couldn't have been possible. A few more thanks that I want to extend are also the people who are not only in this panel who have on the offline given feedback, hey, why don't you talk about specific topics, multiple layers of these topics. Talk about college preparation in high school, during the application process, afterwards, all those different aspects. Couple of last things are thanks to Sudhir Mittalneni Garu, Ravi Gumulpadu, and Ranjit Garu, who's helped put this framework together, and the streaming, flyers, all the information cascading. Without your help, I don't think it would have been possible. And finally, I want to also thank the NATS leadership who has given this fantastic platform to help the people. I mean, this is one example, and NATS has done quite a bit of other activities, but certainly really appreciate all these students who are out here. And not but the least, Lakshmi Garu and Karthik, who have been moderating and also been the firepower behind putting all these guys together. With that, I have to thank everybody. Murthy Garu, anything you want to add, or Lakshmi or Karthik, or students?
I personally, I want to thank each and every one of you. Really appreciate all the work you put in, and I'm really proud of each and every one of you. Really, very proud of you guys. I feel lucky to be part of this program, which is helping right now to a lot of kids, a lot of high schoolers. I really feel lucky to participate in this webinar. And thank you to NATS leadership and everybody. I hope I covered everybody. Murthy Garu can take over. Thank you.
I certainly learned a lot. Students, anything you want to add? Anything about the experience? Anything that we can do better next time? I guess none taken. I guess with that, thank you everybody for joining this panel. We once again thank the audience and thank the parents who have helped put their high schoolers in front of the screen. And hopefully this session has helped. I understand we may not have answered all your questions or went into the depth, the details for everything, but these are the subtle experiences these students have shared, which do not show up in any book, which do not show up in any application form. But these are the subtle things which can help the students make up their minds. And I hope it has been very helpful to you all. Thank you and have a good day.